Greetings everyone, welcome to the next retrospective of the gaming pilgrimage, the Super Robot Taisen retrospective. The point of this retrospective is to reflect upon and to look back at a very underrated game series that is simply overlooked when they originally released, resulting in this series becoming obscure in the Western video game market. The Super Robot Taisen series only consists of 3 games of the long-standing Japanese exclusive series Super Robot Wars. Super Robot Wars has been around since the 90s as a long-standing franchise with over 20 years of games, released on a huge variety of systems from the original Game Boy to the PlayStation 3. The majority of the franchise's releases consist of mashups of various popular Japanese mecha anime franchises, from Gundam to Macross, Evangelion, to some of the old standing franchises like Magaziner Z, or more recent series like Gurren Lagann. All these franchises have characters in the game working with or against one another, with the game's stories simultaneously occurring and combining the plots of various franchises within each game. The majority of the franchise's games have been developed by Band Presto, which is currently a Japanese subdivision of Namco Bandai. Each of the main entries of the series had been a tactical role-playing game and plays similarly to games like Fire Emblem or Disgaea. Sadly, as of this recording, we in America have yet to see an international release of the Super Robot Wars series aside from the 3 games of the Super Robot Taisen series. This is largely blamed on licensing issues in the West for each of the various rights owners of the different franchises within each game. So the reason we saw the Super Robot Taisen games here in international markets is due to the fact that all the game's mecha and characters are original, designed, scripted, and made by the good folk at Band Presto. That brings us to today's game review of Super Robot Taisen Original Generation for the Game Boy Advance. Super Robot Taisen Original Generation originally released in Japan November 22, 2002. 4 years after its original release, the game was brought over to Western shores in August 2006, published by Atlas. Well, is this game an age gem for the Game Boy Advance, or is it a relic best left in the past? Let's find out. The plot of Super Robot Taisen OG is pretty standard fare and plays out like a typical mecha anime series. That isn't to say the plot is bad or isn't well done. Foremost, we have a choice as to whose story we will follow. The default option is to select Ryusei Date, a high school student who is a die-hard mecha otaku and is obsessed with this game's mecha called Personal Troopers. Ryusei joins the military after an alien attack forces him to get in a personal trooper and fight off the extraterrestrial enemies. Ryusei joins the SRX team, and his story follows their exploits. The same time as this alien invasion occurs, a military faction called the Divine Crusaders, or DC, rises up and declares war upon the Earth's government. The game's other hero, Kyosuke Nambu, is a young man enrolled in the military prior to the DC declaration of war, and his story follows the ATX team and follows their perspective throughout the conflict. Each story has the same overall plot points, but it has characters and mechs exclusive to each story, as well as certain segments and missions exclusive to each path. So to get the full picture, you'll need to play through as both Ryusei and Kyosuke. For the most part, this story is actually quite good and displays both sides of the conflict equally well, allowing you as the player to empathize with characters from both factions, providing an interesting story of some epic characters. Having said that, the game's story is mainly told through walls of text. While often humorous and lighthearted, but at times it can go on for a little too long, and depending on whether or not you've seen many mecha anime, you may feel the overall story is safe, or similar to many mecha series such as Gundam. Regardless, I certainly enjoyed the story and believe many others would be inclined to agree with me. Now let's delve into the gameplay. Original Generation plays like previous entries in the series. For those who have not yet been exposed to the other games, imagine a simpler version of Disgaea with a lot more robots. The key difference is that the characters have spirit and their mechs have energy. Each character has a certain amount of spirit which is used for special skills that range from healing units to providing a variety of buffs such as guaranteed dodging to better hit rates, or damage reduction. But there's also a choice of allowing your units to take to the sky, granting them better dodge rates but at the cost of a certain amount of energy being used per turn. You have a variety of attacks to use, with many being unique to certain mechs or pilots and equipment. When attacked, you also have the option of countering, which will damage the enemy after their attack, or you could choose to evade, lowering the enemy's hit rate, or defending, which will lower the damage received. Enemies can also do the same when attacked. Energy and ammunition is required to use certain attacks. Once depleted, they will need to be refilled either through support units or consumable items, but I found it rare to run out of either, thanks to the sheer amount of units you can command at a time. Also, depending on the proximity of your units, they can back up and support one another through taking hits for one another or attacking enemies. You have a great amount of freedom to upgrading both the characters and the respective mechs. Characters slash pilots earn SP, skill points upon leveling up. They can be distributed to different stats that will improve their performance in battle. With the money earned after each battle, you can spend on upgrading various different aspects of the mechs to their dodge rates, armor, HP, and even improving their attack damage. As well, you can change which mechs your pilots can use. There are certain combinations of pilots and mechs that work better than others. On top of that, you can even change the weapon used by some of the mechs, as well as equipping stat boosting items. All this adds a lot of freedom in managing your characters and providing some opportunity for experimentation. But honestly, it's not anywhere near as complicated as I just made it out to be. You'll see once you play the game for yourself, as Super Robot Taisen Original Generation plays very similarly to many other tactical RPGs, so if you've played one before, you'll quickly adapt and be able to play this game with no problems. For the most part, I thought the game wasn't all that challenging. It's not easy, but for anyone with some turn-based experience, you won't be struggling with Original Generation. Having said that, your game's difficulty will be variable to how many battle masteries you have earned. To earn a battle mastery, you must accomplish a certain objective in each chapter. Depending on how many you have, your game's difficulty will range from easy to hard. Each difficulty will grant enemies different stats and change the amount of money and experience earned from battle. More importantly, you will need a certain amount of battle masteries to get access to various secrets, including better weapons for your units, and to play the final mission. Graphically, the game features some nice sprite work in the battle cutscenes, but some very basic looking map screen and menus. Although keep in mind, this game is originally from 2002, and as such the game as a whole isn't all that impressive graphically, especially when compared to past games of the Super Robot series. Some of the animations are very cool looking and are a joy to watch, but there are some others that are so basic and boring to watch, you'll most likely skip them every single time. Thankfully, the developers thought of this as well and provide players to turn attack options on or off before each attack. I personally recommend turning on the attack animations during your turn and off during the enemy's turns to avoid becoming tired of watching the same animations. Although the game is certainly no slouch in the visuals department, it is absolutely excels musically. Each unique pilot has their own theme that plays whenever they are in battle, and almost all of them are an absolute joy to listen to. Some of my favorite tracks are Steel Beowulf and the almighty Trombe. Super Robot Taisen OG has one of the strongest soundtracks on the GBA, right along the game soundtracks like Pokemon and Fire Emblem. I cannot praise the game's audio enough. It may be a reason alone to play the game for some. Well, ultimately, Super Robot Taisen Original Generation is not exactly what I consider a must-play game, but for those that love either strategy RPGs or mecha anime, I'd highly encourage giving this game a shot. It has a good plot, fun but borderline easy turn-based gameplay, some good graphics for an early GBA title, and one hell of a soundtrack. It's also pretty cheap too these days. A copy on eBay typically goes for $20, and for 20 to 30 hours of solid gameplay, it's a safe investment. But the game also offers a new game plus, and multiple playthroughs are encouraged in order to earn all the battle masteries. Suffice to say, this game will keep you busy for quite some time. Besides, you need to know the story of this game in order to fully appreciate its glorious sequel. Well, that's it for Super Robot Taisen Original Generation. Join me in the next part of the Super Robot Taisen Retrospective, in which I'll be looking at the sequel, Super Robot Taisen Original Generations 2. Till next time.